Hello, and welcome to Connecting Jewish Grandparents, the Grand Plan podcast. I'm thrilled that you join me here each week and when we talk about the Torah and how it connects to grandparenting. But let me be honest. Each week I say we're going to look at the joyful, intentional connection because those are the three pillars of Grand Plan. But I make it seem like it's easy, like it's a beautiful idea, but I'm that it creates a false impression. That somewhere listeners are thinking, wow, that must be nice for all the other grandparents that just need this small inspiration, this boost, this idea to coax an even more joyful, even more meaningful connection. But that they're already 99% of the way there, and this just takes up to 100%. That these grandparents are surrounded by their children and grand who look up to them with endless appreciation for their presence and their wisdom and their ideas. But for many of us, that is not and cannot be the whole story. I kind of look at it like, I don't know if you have a similar feed, but I get a lot of recipes for delicious high protein snacks. And like they're great. And like sometimes wow, that's a great snack. I should use that. And they usually are good snacks, but having a handful of chocolatey, high protein snacks does not radically change somebody who's working on weight loss for themselves or their family or lifestyle changes. You need, as I said, the lifestyle changes, the exercise, the having a few high protein snacks does not change your body. And having a few inspirational ideas of how the Torah can enhance grandparents doesn't radically change the less than ideal relationships that are sometimes happening between grandparents and grandchildren, and of course, with the in-betweeners. Loving our grandchildren does not automatically mean that the relationship is easy. Sometimes our children, the in-betweeners, place limits around the involvement. And sometimes that's really difficult. Sometimes there are differences of religious practice or values. Often, geography makes connection painfully difficult. And some family relationships are strained in all directions. And sometimes the demands of the middle generation is beyond what a grandparent wants, that they're treated as a not hired help. The bottom line is that sometimes we have a very different kind of grandparent life than the one that we had imagined and hoped for. And sometimes, probably often, we feel alone in that disappointment. And I think that maybe I've been furthering that pain a little in this podcast, making the implication that most systems are perfect, and this is just to perfect something that's almost there. And I'm sorry if that's the impression I've been giving. But this, as I've said every time, is a connection between the Torah and grandparenting. And for a long time, I've wanted to rectify this imagined perfect grandparenthood that I might be portraying. And on my recent trip to Seattle, there was a lot of discussion of pain points and struggles and really getting grandparents are having a hard time and knowing that the system is not perfect. So what does the Torah say about that? Well, this week's parasha outlines it pretty perfectly. This week is called Ki Tetzei. And of the 613 mitzvot in the whole Torah, there are 70. That's a lot. And yet, there is a reoccurring theme, maybe not in all 74 of them, but in the majority, which is the system is not perfect. The Torah outlines in these mitzvot situations that are far, very far from ideal. Families are complicated. Marriages fail. Children rebel. We lose things that are important to us. Now, all of those are things that you probably know, but those are all things that get described in this week's Torah portion. Workers can be exploited. People are vulnerable. Relationships are tangled and complicated and painful. The Torah in its entirety, and specifically Parashat Ki Tetzei, is not looking at a perfect society. This week's Torah portion is asking, what do we do when life is not what it was supposed to be? I think that is a question that many of us ask ourselves regularly. And this week is Rosh Chodesh Elul. Last week was Rosh Chodesh Elul. This week we are now in the month of Elul, starting this time of introspection, of working on ourselves. And so it's definitely the time we've been, brushing under the rug that life is not what we had hoped it would be, that this is the time for emotional and spiritual and interpersonal. So, what do we do when life is not what it's supposed to be? Now's the time we try to do something about it. But that question, it is a deeply Jewish question. The Torah doesn't wait for the perfect families before telling us how to live. It does not assume that every system works. It gives us guidance inside the mess. If you've been in my Becoming the Grandparent You Want to Be workshop series, we really look deep into this as to the models that the avot and the imaot, the matriarchs and patriarchs, give us in grandparenting, what's working and what isn't, and how we can try to repair that. So it really is throughout the Torah. That's where we look through Genesis, Sefer Bereshit. But this parasha really goes into more universal examples. Because the goal is not to pretend that every grandchild relationship can be joyful in the way that we imagine, that we idolize, that we really want. Perhaps intentional connection sometimes looks like continuing to reach out, even when the relationship feels one-sided. Emphasis on the feels, but it's a continuing to reach out and show up. It's respecting boundaries that we wish didn't exist at all. It's finding a new way to connect when there are barriers of religious or cultural distinction. It's grieving the relationship that we hoped we would have with our children, with our grandchildren, with our great-grandchildren, while still cherishing the one that is possible right now and that is achievable in the near future. It's refusing to give up when geography makes closeness difficult. It's accepting that we cannot control our adult children, but we can still decide the type of grandparent we want to be in spite of who our children are today. I need to make it clear that not all of these situations have a happy resolution. The joyful, intentional connection doesn't always happen. It can just get a little bit better. I I think we need to know that you are not failing because the situation you are in is hard. And what I probably should have said on every episode, but I think this might be the first time I'm saying it, is you're not alone because your family does not look like the family you imagined. They talk about how on social media you see everybody's best face. There's some idiom exactly for what it is, but it's the ideal that you see, not the reality. And I think that as a grandparent, we're often looking at our and what they're posting about their or telling us or sharing with us about the achievements of their grandchildren or the time they had together, what they did this summer with them with beautiful pictures. And you are feeling less that you didn't do those things. Wow, on all the things I've been describing, forgotten to mention physical health and how much time physical health is the barrier and burden that stops us from being the grandparent we would like to be. I'm sorry for that omission. I'm glad I remembered it now. Our Jewish life, our Jewish history, our Torah has always understood that we're going to figure out how to live and love and reign connected in an imperfect world. Ki Tetzei, I can outline some of the things that are in it if you want to open it yourself. Some of them I don't even like describing, but Eshet Yifat Torah, when a is what it starts with. When a non-Jewish woman that you see becomes a prisoner of war and you're attracted to her, like how disturbed does that feel, right? To me, that's completely like, ugh, why would that even need to be mentioned in our most holy text? But that's the idea that we are broken. Our relationships are not ideal. I feel that the Torah has taken like one of the most extreme possibilities to lay it out and describe what you do when you're in that situation because the Almighty knows, the Torah knows, and we know even if we try to ignore that we can be part of a very disconnected, very um, broken world. And it's our job to fix what we can, but know that we're not coming from a perfect place. We're coming from a place of repair. And that's the work we need to be doing. And the Torah is outlining us on how to do that. So when I talk about joyful, intentional connection, it is the ideal. But joy doesn't mean the absence of grief. And intentionality does not guarantee the outcome that we want. And connection is not always easy or uncomplicated, and certainly it's not always reciprocal. So when we hold that burden of reality, we have to ask ourselves, what is possible here? It's not, how do I force the relationships to become what I imagined? It is, given the family that I actually have and the circumstances that exist actually right now, and the people that I actually love, what can connection look like now? And I said, I regret that this episode hasn't happened sooner, but now truly is the time. Between Parshat Ki Tetzei and that being the idea in practically all of the 74 mitzvot of the system is broken. What do we do to protect it? One that I've always liked to teach children, because it's much easier than the one I described, is this Also has a commandment that if you build a roof on your house that's flat, you have to build a fence on it so that nobody falls. And to me, that's almost the same thing of it's not going to be perfect. Things are going to happen. So how do we set up guardrails around our lives to do our best? And as we are in the month of Elul for us Sfaradim enjoying Selichot, and yes, I said enjoying, hearing the call of the shofar, the wake up to realize now is the time to be doing that internal work. And that internal work starts with accepting where we are right now, not pretending that it's something else, but thinking about where it is right now and the steps that we want to do to repair, to teshuvah, to return to the ideal way that we want to be. And I want to be clear that when I say joyful, intentional connection, uh, the way that I described it in today's episode is important to understand that it's not patronizing and it's not taking leaps of faith, that it's the best that we can do, that we, the grandparent, stays joyful, and we, the grandparent, are intentional, but joyful isn't always. And that connection can very much be one-sided, but it has to start with you. I feel a little bit more upbeat when I usually finish an episode, but I think holding that pain and knowing that we're not alone in it, that this situation is practically universal, but it's true and it's hard and it's where we are and it's where we're going to move forward through as we approach Rosh Hashanah, as we approach the new year, is to be aware of where we are and to be okay with it, and then to try to take maybe some small steps. I used to offer one-on-one coaching where I worked on some of these situations with people. If you still want that, you can reach out. It's not something I've been doing for a while. And the next round that I mentioned of the course of becoming the grandparent you want to be will begin after the Chagim. So we have Rosh Hashanah and Kippur and Sukkot to get through, and then we'll start up again. But if there's any way that I can be helping you, please reach out because I'm here for you. And you can check out the website, grandplan.pro, to see what else we're working on. Have a wonderful week.